Welcome back. It's Thursday, so I'm going to do my best to bring the conversation for the whole week full circle and to tie it up into a coherent, coordinated sequence. So I'll do my best, but we started unusually on Monday with one of the 10 commandments, which is honor your mother and your father, which, uh, you know, whatever, maybe my mom, but certainly not my father to this day, in fact. And yet there's a radically deeper implication and meaning of that commandment. And honor your mother and father means honor the masculine and feminine principle within us, because as human beings, we all obviously have those two great faculties of yin and yang, masculine and feminine. And then I went on to comment how masculine principle represents our thought life and feminine principle represents our emotional life, and how the proper blending of those two things equals a healthy, functional, intelligent, harmonious, delightful life when all goes well. Now, maybe, humans that are fortunate, they grow up in an environment and their emotional life is tempered and tamed, directed, integrated, assimilated by parents who are also emotionally healthy and intelligent. And so, the beat goes on. One healthy generation begats a healthy generation of emotionally sound and stable people moving forward. Maybe that wasn't exactly your experience. And maybe you grew up with some emotional trauma, some difficulty, some repression, some suppression, or maybe you grew up in an environment of intense emotional acting out. But they're flip sides of the same coin. So whatever our emotional life is, many of our emotions are packed down inside of us. Perhaps trauma happened to us and we weren't able, with our emotional or psychological architecture that we owned when we were 4 or 7 years old, we weren't able to integrate it at that time. But the body remembers. The body remembers, and it takes stored traumatic emotion and it puts it places. Well, where does it put it? Well, the flesh, the joints, the subconscious. Doesn't matter where it goes, but it goes somewhere because the body never forgets. So perhaps we have a repressed emotional life, or perhaps we have a wildly emotional life that's tempered and undirected. Be that as it may, we're riding the red horse of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. We have an emotional life that is out of control. And then inevitably we end up stepping on the landmines of emotion later in life, the repressions, and we might go through terrific episodes of grief, anger, sadness, jealousy, fear. These are the great emotions of our life, the great primary instinctual emotions that, when repressed or traumatized, this is how they present. I'm biting off a big chunk in this conversation, I understand, but when you get this concept and realize if we're swamped in negative emotion later in life, then the emotion is a great resource, and how we use the emotion determines the rest of our life. Because when you couple strong emotion with negative thinking, it continues to build and channelize deeper habitual patterns in our brain. Angry people that continue to practice anger inside of their head produce more anger. And the list goes on and on of the negative emotions. So what is the answer? What's the solution to this? If we find ourselves in strong emotion, emotion is a resource. It's an organic catalyst that, when coupled with proper thought, gives birth to new reality, new mental channels, new neuronal pathways. This is the good news, but it's also so excruciatingly challenging when we're swamped in negative emotion to actually get a hold of ourselves, so to speak, and feed positive thought into the negative feeling. Now, this might be a long chapter of our lives. I can truly relate to this myself. I grew up with really staggering repressed emotions. That's just my story. It's no different, no better, no worse than anyone else's. But by the time I got into my 40s and stepped on the landmines of incredibly repressed emotions, then incredible abandonment, grief, sorrow, sadness, anger, rage was on me for many years. Now, at that point, I had wise teachers who said, Greg, it's okay that your emotions come up, but we're going to help you and teach you and train you to couple wise new perceptual patterns and feed them into these strong emotions. And if you're diligent and persistent, courageous and brave about this phase of your development, you will build a new brain. And I had to trust them because it was extremely difficult. And I've been doing it for many years. Have I perfected the process? Obviously not. I'm just another bozo on the bus. But I can say that with true honesty that I've taken very strong emotions, and with patience and diligence and persistence, I've fed many good new thoughts, call them prayers or affirmations, if you will. And I've built a lot of new brain tissue. I've enjoying a lot of neuroplasticity, and this makes my life a joyful and harmonious affair for a much greater ratio of time. Am I still beset and besought by negative emotions? Yes, yesterday in fact, but when strong emotions hit me, as soon as I can, I remember, Greg, emotion is a strong catalyst and it's organic. And the thoughts that I'm thinking now will determine whether my future will be a harmonious one or a degraded and negative one. And then I can choose. And when we learn to choose what to do with our emotions, we're then adult and we're mature. And there's a lot of 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old people who might be chronologically old, but they're not emotionally mature. And it's something we all can work on. It's something we all can improve. And I hope the topic this week and this particular principle or strategy makes sense. And we can talk about it and visit it. And it's something we can explore for the rest of our lives. Thanks for listening. I hope it helps.